crying because they don't know if the men and the sons are coming back home ever again. Okay? And I'm like, we've been preparing for this day for 12 months. This is awesome. This is a good thing. And Mum's just a bit nervous about things still. But that's all right. And we're getting used to him taking keys and driving. It's a good thing. And car. Just one car at the moment, my car. And that's okay, I'm getting used to that as well. But that's all right. We're going to talk on a subject today that is going to make you all very uncomfortable. And if some of you are uncomfortable, that is a good thing. That is a very good thing, and that is purposeful. Because that means Jesus is working with you today. We're going to talk about forgiveness. This is a really uncomfortable subject. It's a hard subject. It's a subject that will give you goosebumps and it will make you squirm in your seat the more we talk about it. But I'm going to ask you to extend some forgiveness to me because I'm on some medication that makes me do some weird things. So let me talk about that and get the elephant out of the room. Tourette's? No, I don't have Tourette's. That would be so much more fun, wouldn't it? But it's a little bit like Tourette's. So let me tell you, when I'm under pressure, some things can weirdly happen. So let me tell you, at the beginning of this month, I was at an event and we had a half an hour turnaround at work. We had some folks from the States out and I had a half an hour turnaround, and on the Monday before the event, all the lights in our conference room were working. All the lights were working, which is great. In the half an hour turnaround, I go in and 3 of the lights have blown. Now that's not good because the factory in Europe that makes the lights closed down, will never open up again. So all the lights are being bought in the world and no more are being made. Now, I know I've got some left. I go down to the storeroom, there's 1 light left. So I've got half an hour to turn this around. And so I've got all my staff there. We've got cleaners, they're vacuuming. I've got my GR staff, my guest relations staff. And I say, I've got the Americans, they've walked in, they've got their Australian helpers. And I say, I know what I need to say. I need to climb up 6 meters. I know I need to say, I need a ladder. I know they're the words I want out of my mouth. They're not the words that come out of my mouth because under stress with this medication, you know what you want to say, but sometimes those words don't come out. And so I say, I need an umbrella. The whole room stops. Like people vacuuming are just, did he just say, what? Like, I'm like, sorry everyone, I meant ladder. I get a ladder. Like, I'm explaining to the Americans, sorry, I'm on this medication. Sometimes the words I want to say don't come out under pressure. So if that happens today and I just say a random word, you know what's going on, okay? So we're talking about forgiveness. I'm giving you an opportunity to practice what I'm preaching, okay? So, awesome. I have a question to start with. What is Jesus preparing for you today? What are you being prepared for? Because you are being prepared for something. Jesus is preparing you for something. You are not living in this world for no reason. You're not walking around, you're not living a life for nothing. You are being prepared. We're talking about the Joseph story at the moment, and Joseph was being prepared his whole entire life. In fact, he was being prepared for years. Joseph was being prepared long before he was Prime Minister of Egypt in the prison. Think about this. In the dungeon, he had lots of time to process the betrayal of his brothers, being sold off just like we've seen. Pastor Owen talking about it last week, the little skit we've seen from our kids today. But you know what? Even though he spent so much time in prison, he stayed faithful to God. and to the gifts God had given him. How often, maybe we just sometimes don't. Maybe we stay faithful to God, but maybe not to the gifts that we're given. Maybe we're faithful to the gifts we're given, but not to God. And even after he was faithful to the gift he was given of interpreting dreams and of faithful to God, and he interprets the dreams of the cup holder, says, "Don't forget me." 2 years go past before the cup holder remembers Joseph. Joseph remained in a posture of readiness, even in a prison cell. He was ready in a prison cell, day after day after day after day. Are you ready? Are you in a state of readiness? This is hard. This is, I'm not going to apologize. This is a really hard message. When I got to the end of this, I went, this is heavy. For a family, Pastor Rowan, this is a family service. We're talking forgiveness in a family service. Oh my goodness.
Every parent needs that.
Man.
And every child.
In readiness, the Lord was using Joseph. How is Jesus using you today? And are you ready to be used by Jesus? Are you in a state of readiness? And things were far from ideal for Joseph. He's in a cell, but he's in a state of readiness. And things got even more complicated for Joseph, because even though when things were great, his world gets turned upside down. So imagine this. Joseph, he's in the cell, and there's a commotion outside. He can hear the keys opening the cell door, and he's thinking, oh gosh, there's another prisoner about to enter. He doesn't know what's about to happen, who's about to enter. The fear, the anxiety, all the emotions rushing through his body. Do I need to defend myself? Who's about to enter? What's the next 24 hours going to be like? Is my life at threat for who's going to enter in the door? The door opens. Guards rush in. He doesn't know what's going on. He gets lifted up, and the next thing he knows, he's rushed out the cell door, and he's going up. He's being dragged upstairs, and he's straight into a bathroom. He's told, have a shave and get dressed. He still doesn't know what's going on.
Wow.
He's got no idea. Is this, he's questioning now, is this the last time I'm going to live? Yeah. Am I going to my execution now? They've kept me in a cell for 10 years just to kill me? What's going on? I don't know. All the fear, all the anxiety. He's in a state of readiness. He's got no idea what's going on. But he went from pit to the throne room, from prisoner to prime minister in a matter of minutes. Minutes.
Incredible.
But it was his character that was built over years in an unjust prison cell, not of his own doing. But he was prepared and he was ready. He was ready. Now, things were going great. Prime Minister, in a moment. Imagine he gets to the end of that day. You'd just be pinching yourself, right? He's sleeping in a bed. He has food. He's been given a wife. Whoa, hang on a second. I was just a prisoner. I've had a shower. I've had a shave. I've got a wife. Something's going on here. Okay. And so things are good, right? Everything that God has said is going to happen is happening. The 7 years have happened, and it's been good. He's prepared everything like God has said it needs to happen. And the famine's hit, and he's doing what needs to happen. He's distributing the food. Everything's going to plan. He's got a couple of kids. And I want to, something just goes past that we don't sort of see what's actually gone on. And I want to highlight this, because God reveals to us what's actually the work that God's done in Joseph's life in the naming of his kids. He names his firstborn, God has made me forget the hardships of all my father's house. And he names his secondborn, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Joseph had thought he'd forgiven his brothers, but he hadn't. He'd just forgotten and not forgiven.
Wow.
He'd forgotten the hard times that he had with his brothers. He actually hadn't forgiven his brothers for what they'd done. Because the next thing, the brothers show up. So Jacob sends the brothers down because Jacob says, hey, what are you still doing here? We're going to die here. I hear there's grain down in Egypt. Go down, but I'm keeping Benjamin, my beloved son, my now beloved son, my favourite son, a father who has a beloved son. Keep that in your back pocket for the moment. And I want you to go down and get grain for the family. So the 10 brothers go down to get grain. And they walk in and they see Joseph. They don't know it's Joseph. They just see it's the Prime Minister of Egypt. They bow down before him. Oh, is that not the dream he had?
Yeah, exactly.
Fulfilled. Now Joseph, who was doing well, who thought everything's going great, everything's wonderful, bang, emotions hit. Now he thought life's doing good, everything's great, but all of a sudden unforgiveness has welled up in him. And he thought he dealt with it, but he hadn't. And all of a sudden he's got to deal with it because the brothers are there. They're in front of him. He has to deal with it. It was unexpected. Unexpected. How many years have gone past now? It's 20 odd years. 20 years later, he's having to deal with these emotions. He'd forgotten all about it. And all of a sudden, he's got to deal with it. And he's speaking pretty harshly to his brothers. The Bible puts it nice and neatly, roughly. He spoke roughly to his brothers. Rubbish. I'll use a nice word because there's kids around. Rubbish. He was ruthless. I'll use all nice words. Ruthless. He spoke to them. He called them spies. He basically said, you're coming in to look at the nakedness of our land and you want to come in and overtake it. You're warriors and you're coming in to overtake the land. And he threw them in prison. Here's what it says. It says, and he put them all together in custody for 3 days. Now, it wasn't jail. Most likely, it was probably in his house, in custody. So he took their freedom away from him. He took their freedom away. What did they do to him? They took his freedom away. There's a little bit of revenge in this. When we're not forgiving someone, what do we want? We want a bit of revenge, don't we? On the third day, Joseph said to them, do this and you'll live. For I fear God and I'm an honest man. I'm an honest man. Oh, sorry. He's saying he's an honest man. And if you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody. And let the rest go and carry grain for the famine of your household, and bring your youngest brother to me. Because they sort of said, we're we're from one family, we're from one dad, our youngest brother's at home, and one of our brothers is no more. But we're honest men. And he knows they're not honest men. One of the brothers is no more. Rubbish. I'm standing in front of you. They don't know that. So your words will be verified and you shall not die. And they did so. And then they said to one another, in truth, we are guilty concerning our brother, and that they saw the distress in his soul when he begged us, and we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? But you did not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood. They did not know that Joseph understood them, for there had been an interpreter between them. Then he turned away and wept. And he returned to them and he spoke to them. And he took Simeon and bound them before their eyes. And Joseph gave the orders to fill their bags with grain and replace the man's money, in their sack. And he gave them the provisions for the journey. This was done for them. He wept. He could hear them. He could hear the anguish. He could hear their guilt, their pain, their sorrow for everything they'd done. His confusion, his pain, his anger, all his emotions stirring like a washing machine in him. Not that they had washing machines back then, but, that's what we've got now. But it's a wash in him. And all those emotions overwhelmed him that it brought him to tears. He had to turn away. Get himself under a bit of control. And then come back and deal with the situation. But you see what he's doing here? This test is what they did to him. The brothers go out. Joseph goes out. 11 brothers out. 10 brothers come home. Bit of money for their trouble. They tell the dad, something's gone wrong and animals attacked him. Dad, you've lost a son. I'm so sorry. He's tempting the brothers again. There's some money for your trouble. What story are you going to tell, Dad?
Wow. That's good.
What's the story?
Never thought of that. That's brilliant.
What's the story? He sends them off. Are they changed? What are they going to do? Are they honest men? Have they become honest? They get home. They tell Jacob everything. They tell the truth. They can't come back until they bring Benjamin, though. Here's the horrible thing. I don't know if you picked this up. They don't return until they eat all the grain.
They're avoiding it.
They don't go, oh, hang on a second. Simeon is still down there. Look, here's the grain. Dad, we've got to go and get Simeon. Dad's like, look, I've got this son that I can't let you have. So let's just eat until we've got nothing left. And then we'll work out what we're going to do. Poor Simeon, he's in custody. It's not probably as bad as what Joseph was in the prison cell, but he's got no freedom. He doesn't. Simeon's like, are they coming back for me? Like I know it took us this long to get here, and it would have taken that long to get back, but it's probably been like, they could have made this trip 8 or 9, 10, 20, 30 times now. Are they coming back for me? Have they done what we did?
Come on. Wow.
What the? If I was Simeon, I'd be freaked out. This is full on. Man. Whew. Jacob is asked to surrender his beloved son. There is a big story going on here. This is like the preview of a Jesus story. A beloved son is given. A father having to give up a beloved son. I'll sacrifice my life for Benjamin. Judah, who's going to be the father of the tribe of Judah, the line of Jesus, who's going to sacrifice all to save humanity. What? This is huge. So we can have a relationship with the Father. This is a big picture. This is a preview of what's going to happen. Wow, okay. Now, we don't have time to dig in because we could go forever on this. So the brothers go back to Egypt. They finally convince Jacob to let Benjamin go. But Judah has to be the sacrifice. Judah says, I'll sacrifice my life for Benjamin. If anything goes wrong, I'll sacrifice my life for Benjamin. So when they get to Joseph's house, they're brought into the house and Simeon's released. So they're having a little reunion. I bet you Simeon's got some very strong words. What took you so long, he said. Oh, finally you're here. What took you so long? I'm sure that was what was said. So Joseph gets home. They're brought into the house and they present to him the gifts that they've got. They bow down before him. There's the vision again, to the ground. And he inquires about the welfare of their welfare and says, is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive? Joseph's compassion engages again. He wants to know about his dad. And they bow their heads and prostrate themselves. And he lifts his eyes up and sees his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. And says, is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me? Now, they could have just got anyone. They could have just gone and found a young person and said, hey, you need to pretend to be our brother. And, thank goodness, hey, they didn't. And he says, God be gracious to you, my son. And then Joseph hurried out, for his compassion grew warm for his brother, and he sought a place to weep. And he entered his chamber and he wept there. Then he washed his face and came out, and controlling himself, he served their food. They served him by himself and them by themselves. And the Egyptians who ate with them with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews, because this is an abomination to the Egyptians. Like, I love that part. Like, this is totally disgusting. Like, no way. Exactly right. It's just like hilariously funny. We won't go into that. And they ate before him, but the firstborn according to their birthright and the youngest according to their birthright. But then, I love this part. And then the men looked at one another in amazement. Portions were taken from Joseph's table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank and they were merry with him. When they were merry, they drank a lot. But Joseph was trying to engage the jealous streak of the brothers. He was testing again. He's like, right, I want to make you jealous of the beloved son. How can I get this jealous streak enacted? Have you really changed? So, he enacts the jealous streak, but he has a compassionate side. He has to go out. He's weeping. He's seen his younger brother. Maybe these older blokes have changed. They haven't killed the beloved son, but he's not quite trusting yet. He wants to forgive, but he's not there. This is a complicated process.
Right.
When we faced with forgiveness, it's not just I forgive you, not a problem at all. Done. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things you are going to have to do in life. And you're not going to be able to do it on your own. I'd love to be able to say, you can just do this by yourself. You are going to need God's help. You are going to need Jesus walking right beside you in this. And it is going to be a process. And it's going to be like a release, a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. It's not just going to be like Joseph here. He's just doing this little bit at a time, a little bit. I'm going to test, I'm releasing. Joseph was a complete mess. He had to control himself when he spoke to them. He's the prime minister. He's dealing with the pressure. He's feeding nations. It says that he's feeding the world. He's feeding the world and he's dealing with his 10 brothers and he's got to control himself. Imagine the pressure he's under, and this is the thing that's breaking him. So Joseph tests the brothers again. He fills their sacks with grain, portions that as much as they could carry. Puts their money back in the bags, and he goes, and for the youngest one, take my silver cup and put it in his bag, and sends him off. Sends him off, and he calls them back. And they call him back and they say, my cup's missing. Who's got the cup? And they open the bags up, and it's in Benjamin's bag. They're like, whoa, hang on a second. Now, what are the brothers going to do? Are they going to cut and run? I mean, we're over these favourite sons. We got rid of one of them. Hey, here's our opportunity to get rid of another favourite son. Come on.
Yeah.
We've got the money. We've got the grain. We can get rid of a favourite son. One of us might be the new favourite son. This is life. Bring it on. And Judah, he stands up. And he says, this can't happen. You can't. And Judah, he steps up to the plate and he says, his brother come to Joseph's house. He was still there. He fell before him on the ground. There it is again. Joseph said to them, what deed is this that you have done? Do you not know that a man like me can indeed practice divination? I could spend a whole sermon on that. When I looked into that, I'm like, I can't fit this into this. This is a different piece, but there's a whole nother sermon in that. And Judah said, what shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how can we be clear? How can we clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants. Behold, we are the Lord's servants, both we and he also, in whose hands the cup has been found. But Joseph said, far be it from me that I should do so. Only the man whose hand the cup was found shall be my servant. Only Benjamin is guilty, and only Benjamin I'll keep. I only want Benjamin. This is the test. But as for you, go back in peace to your father. Then Judah went up to him and said, O my Lord, please let your servant speak a word in my Lord's ear. And let not anger burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself. My Lord, asked his servant, saying, "Have you a father or a brother?" Ow, that hurts. Joseph had a father and he had brothers. I'm going to move on to verse 30 because Judah basically retells the story of everything that had happened. "Now therefore, as soon as I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, then his life is bound up in this boy's life. As soon as he sees the boy is not with us, he will die. And your servant will bring down the grey hairs of your servant our father with sorrow to Sheol. For your servant become a pledge of safety for the boy to my father, saying, I will not bring him back to you. If I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father for all my life. Now therefore, please let me, your servant, remain instead a sacrifice for the boy as a servant to my Lord, and let the boy go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I fear to see the evil that would find my father." Then Joseph could not control himself any longer. Before all those that stood before him, he cried, "Make everyone go out before me." So no one stayed with him, and Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he wept aloud, so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph, your father is my father still alive?" But the brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. They were on the floor. They would have been on their knees in shock. Are you kidding me? You're our brother who we sold? You're him? Like, when's our execution day? Like, what? They think it's all over. And he's weeping. Joseph is weeping. And it's at this point that Joseph forgives. His compassion overtakes him. Compassion and forgiveness are intertwined. Intertwined. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." He hasn't had a brother relationship for 20 years. Come near to me, please. Come near to me, please. And they came near, and he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine had been in the land these 2 years. And there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither ploughing or harvest. And God set me before you to preserve life. To preserve you a remnant on earth." There's a whole nother sermon in that. Can't go there. "And to keep alive for you many survivors. So it is not you who sent me here, but God. He's made me a father to Pharaoh and a lord of the house and rulers over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord over all of Egypt. Come down to me and do not tarry.'" Can you just imagine being a brother there? What questions, right? Questions. What the? Question. Are you kidding me? Like, how do you know what? You really are Joseph. But it gets better. He then fell into his brother's Benjamin's neck and wept. And Benjamin wept upon his neck. Then he kissed the brothers and he wept upon them. And after that, the brothers talked. He then connected. He forgave every single one of them. The kiss, the forgiveness, the connection. He forgave every single one of them. We're going over a little bit, but this is important. So we're going to stand. Everyone to stand. Unforgiveness in every single one of us, it is like the thing that can eat you alive. And it can hit you when you least expect it. When you least expect it, like Joseph. He was doing great. He was the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister. And then it hit him when he least expected it. When you forgive someone, you're releasing them from the desire to take revenge on them. Forgiveness doesn't prevent you from allowing justice to take place. Forgiveness requires us not to become the judge, jury, and executioner in what's going on. Forgiveness is not easy. We're going to need Jesus to walk with us in each moment. Corrie ten Boom was imprisoned by the Nazis in World War II. And had all sorts of atrocities committed. And she's seen all sorts of atrocities committed in a Nazi camp, which were horrible. Miraculously, she survived that camp. And God used her in an amazing way to be a speaker. And she was speaking one evening on forgiveness. And she got to the end of that evening and a man approached her. And as that man approached her, she recognized it as one of the guards at that prison camp. And even though she was prepared and God had been doing mighty things for her, some unforgiveness that she hadn't dealt with hit her and she froze. And he was one of the cruelest guards at that camp. And she realized that she had been naked in front of him, having to walk down a line, and all of a sudden she's having to deal with this moment. And he approaches her and he says, "I've become a Christian since the war. And I know God's forgiven me, but I want to know, would you forgive me?" And I need to read her words because I don't want to get this wrong. She says, "It could have been many seconds that I stood there. That he stood there with his held out hand, but to me it seemed hours as I wrestled with the most difficult thing that I ever had to do. I stood there with the coldness clutching my heart. But forgiveness is an act of will. and with the will can function regardless of the temperature of the heart. Jesus, help me, I prayed, silently. I can lift my hand. I can do that much. You supply the feeling. And so woodenly, mechanically, I thrust my hand into one stretched out to me. And as I did, an incredible thing took place. The current started in my shoulder, raced down my arm, sprang into the joined hands. And then this healing warmth seemed to flood my whole being, bringing tears to my eyes. I forgive you, brother, I cried, with all my heart. For a long moment, we grasped each other's hands. From former guard and former prisoner, I had never known God's love so intensely as I did then. Corey was being used by Jesus in 1947 in a powerful way. She was prepared, just like Joseph was. But out of the blue, that moment happened. What is it for you today where there might be some unforgiveness that you just need to let go of? If I could get the band to come up, we're just going to have a moment where if you've got some unforgiveness where you need to forgive someone or forgive yourself, we're going to allow you a moment to do that now. If you feel you need help in doing that, we want to pray with you and stand with you to help you do that, because this is not easy to do. Because we do not want to have moments like Joseph or Corey where you walk around the corner and that moment happens and it hits you like a ton of bricks. That's not what we want. Jesus, we ask you right now to come. In Luke 24:45 to 47, it says, "Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures. And he said to them, 'Thus it is written that Christ should suffer, and then on the third day rise from the dead, and then repentance and forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all the nations, beginning in Jerusalem.'" The picture of Joseph is the forestory of the big picture of Jesus, who came from heaven, a beloved son, to earth, who suffered, was crucified, who raised from the dead, who restored us to the Father. So Jesus, we ask that you help us with our unforgiveness. Jesus, right now, we ask that you would help us see any unforgiveness that we might need to deal with. Bring it to our mind. We ask If you can forgive that person, forgive that moment, forgive yourself, I ask you to do that now. If you need help with that, we're going to open up for prayer. We're going to hand out communion. And through this song, when you're ready, you just take communion in your time. Maybe there might be a moment in the song where you feel there's a release for you to be able to take communion. Maybe you've dealt with some forgiveness that you need to be able to deal with. You feel free to take that. If you want some prayer, you come and get some prayer.